This is Ready to Redo, where we'll be mixing mediocre humour with the topic of redoing education. I'm Yang, and in today's episode, we're going to be discussing everything to do with our fear of failure, how it impacts us today, how schools are creating a negative mindset around failure, and how we need to reframe the learning process as inspired by Mark Rober's TED Talk. If you feel personally attacked in this episode, I apologize in advance. And as always, there is a video version of this podcast episode, so if you prefer to watch and listen to this, then check out the YouTube link in the show notes. Awesome! Let's jump straight into it. Hey guys, welcome back. So today, we're talking about a problem that is so pervasive in society, but it's not something that we talk about often. And that is the fear of failure. And this manifests in many different ways. Either failure is making mistakes, or looking stupid, or doing something embarrassing. And the thing is that we actively avoid these failures. So if we want to do something, the mere thought that it can fail prevents us from even attempting it. And, we'll give excuses like, nah, I can't do that, or when I do X, or when I have this thing, then I will be able to do it. And they're basically all there because we just don't want to fail. We'll give excuses so that we don't have to experience that. And in society, we're often giving our highlight reel. So for example, a job interview, it's very unlikely that you're going to be listing out all your failures to your interviewer and trying to impress them that way. Most likely you're going to be giving them your successes. And the same with family or friends or people that we haven't seen in a long time. Generally, the conversations will be around achievements or things that we've managed to do or something positive. Because again, we don't like talking about failures, or we feel a bit awkward because it'll dampen the mood. But the paradox is that we need failure in order to create success. So something I'll be emphasizing a lot today is that failure is an absolutely crucial part of the learning process. And I feel like school is not supporting this idea. And the thing is, something that we actually don't acknowledge is that successful people have failed so many bloody times. But the fact is, because they have tried so many times, they have actually increased the chances that they'll be successful. And there's this quote that says, we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. So if we use the analogy of basketball or something, successful people have thrown so many balls at the ring, and most of them have either fallen off or hit the ring but not gone in. But because they've shot so many times, some are bound to fall in, and those are their successes. But the thing is, for most of us, we're so caught up in our fear of failure that we won't even throw the ball. So here we are just clutching the ball and being like, no, what if I fail? What if it doesn't go in? But again, we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. So I'm sure you can relate to this where if you sing a wrong note, for example, chances are you're going to get a little bit quieter and possibly not even attempt the same note again because you don't want to make that same mistake. Or not wanting to go all out on something and put all your energy and effort into something in case it gets rejected. So what I would do, especially around assessments and things, would be, to be honest, I didn't try that hard. So because of that, if I get a bad grade, for example, I can validate it because I didn't put all my effort into it. Or even posting something online where it's with good intent, but you're scared that people will take it the wrong way. All of these things require us to just do it and then see what happens. We get the feedback, we see what actually works and what doesn't, and then we'll learn from it. But too often we won't even go ahead with it because we're scared of failure. And I watched this really brilliant TED Talk by a guy called Mark Rober, R-O-B-E-R, and he has a whole TED Talk about what he calls the Super Mario effect. And his main message throughout this TED Talk is that failure should be a standard part of the learning process, and we need to reframe how we view failure. So he uses the analogy of a baby trying to walk. So babies do not give a shit if they fall over. For them, falling over is just, it just is. It's not a mistake. It's not a failure. They don't think they're a total failure every time they fall over. They get back up and they do it again. But each time they get up, they are adjusting how they walk. So now they've learnt to put weight onto a certain part of their body or to adjust using their hands in a certain way. Each time they fall, they learn something from it. And the thing is, they're in a very supportive environment because no one thinks that babies will never learn to walk. So every time a baby falls, the parent might just go, okay, cool, and not respond to that because that's natural. But I would think that if any time the baby fell and you made like a loud noise or negatively reinforced that behavior, they would actually think falling is a bad thing. So that's very important to have an environment that actually supports them. So Mark did this really fascinating study where he had two different groups. Both were playing the same game. He just created some random game. But one group did not have anything happen. So when they lost the game, they could repeat it however many times and nothing would happen. Whereas the other group started with 200 points. And every time they lost the game, 5 points would be deducted. And the results were actually insane. So for the second group, who were penalized each time they lost the game, had a 52% success rate. Whereas the first group, who were not penalized at all, had a 68% success rate. Plus, they were 2.5 times more likely to attempt the game. Just the fact that there was a deduction in points caused this massive difference to occur. It's so crazy. And Mark also uses the analogy of Super Mario. So he says that every time you play the game, you're focused on the outcome, which is to save Princess Peach from Bowser. So the times when you fall into a pit, you're not going, oh my god, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed, that's such a failure. No, you just redo the game and you keep going, and each time you redo, you're learning something about that course. So you know to dodge that pit or to jump over that shell. So Mark really emphasizes that we learn from our mistakes, but we don't focus on our mistakes. So how is school actually relevant to this whole topic? Well, school is one of the environments where we actually penalize people for failing. So suddenly, as students, we're having our learning evaluated through things like grades. And if we're not successful, we're punished, I'm using air quotes by the way, we're punished through a bad grade. And in school, we reward A+, and we actually look at D's and stuff with concern. We're like, you really got to improve. So because the school environment makes it seem like these low grades are bad, of course, students are going to associate them as being bad as well, and that failure is bad. But I really think that school is such a crucial time and environment to make failure an okay thing. Sure, failure sucks, and, we don't obviously want to invite it, but it's the fact that we're not going to be penalized or punished for failing. So it's about letting a student create a project that absolutely fails miserably, but then they're able to redo and learn from their mistakes. Or even having a student in class ask a really stupid question, for example. Not to be the norm for other students to internally ridicule that kid, but to acknowledge that, yeah, the person should know better, but they're given ways to improve even how they ask questions, so not having the student feel embarrassed to ask one again in the future. I've already mentioned how much I dislike grades, so I feel like I don't need to go into more detail again. But to just summarize, it's just a standardized way of assessing where a kid's at. You're compared to an expectation of where you should be, and the test is really only showing one way of how we know that material. So if we change the way it was taught, the way it was assessed, the grade could turn out completely different. And a thing I found myself and a lot of other people doing was that we were studying for a test in fear of failure as opposed to our love for learning. Now we're learning under stress and expectations as opposed to just enjoying the content because we're scared of failing. So say if a student got a low grade, what really doesn't help is because the curriculum is so standardized, that student may not get the opportunity to redo that test or get reassessed on the same content because the curriculum's moving on. We're jumping from topic to topic. So oftentimes a student will, based on that one test, will think whether they're good or bad at it. But life gives so many opportunities for a redo. Even if the situation is not exactly the same, what you learn from your previous mistakes definitely apply to whatever that new situation is. So what can we do? Well, first we can personalize the curriculum to the student. So if the student needs to consolidate more knowledge in a particular topic, instead of jumping from topic to topic, let them keep doing it and apply the lessons that they've learnt from their mistakes to that topic to get it right and not associate themselves as being a failure. Also, to replace grades, because we don't need grades, replace them with areas of improvement, with feedback, with things that we can actually use to improve ourselves in the future. Also, to give personalized challenges to each student. Get them to experiment, get them to do something that may result in failure. To come up with plenty of bad ideas, because out of those bad ideas will come really great little nuggets. Again, failure is normal. It's part of our learning process. We fail, we get back up, and we try again. So I'll just leave us with this quote from Thomas Edison. "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." See you next time.